I proceeded to make a home for myself and for the provisions I had brought from the ship. 12 days had passed since I first was washed ashore, and I realized that before long I should lose my reckoning for passing of time. I took a large plank of wood and set it on its edge. I took my knife and carved these words. I came upon this shore September 30th, 1659. Every day I cut a new notch with my knife. Every seventh notch was as long as all the others before it, which indicated a week. The first day of every month, I cut still a longer notch, and thus kept my calendar by the week, month, and year. Every day I journeyed into the woods in search of game, and I found small wild animals. One day, I needed a little bag to gather nuts in. I found the little bag that had contained the corn. You remember, to feed the chickens. I emptied the bag out on the ground and used it. Soon there began a rainy season on the island. Many weeks later, when I looked on the ground where I had thrown the corn, to my surprise, 10 or 12 little corn stalks were pushing themselves out of the ground, and I could see that I had a new source of food. 1 year passed, 2 years, then 3. I was very seldom idle. I farmed the corn and other grains I had found on the ship. I went out hunting each day for food. I made my home safe and secure and built furniture for it. What I could not do for myself before, I now learned. And all in all, I created for myself a peaceful, full and happy life. But still my thoughts ran many times upon the land which I had seen far to the west. Perhaps, I thought, it's the mainland of some foreign civilized country. Perhaps it is my means of escaping from my solitude here. Or perhaps it is inhabited by cannibals and savages. Perhaps if I fell into their hands, my fate would be worse than if I were in the jungle in the midst of ferocious animals. But whatever it was on that distant land, I had to see it, and I resolved to build myself a boat to take me there. I chose a vast tree in the woods. It was 20 days hacking and hewing at the bottom of it until it finally fell. I was 14 more days getting off the branches and limbs. It took a month more to shape it to something like the bottom of a boat that might swim upright in the water as it ought to. It cost me nearly 3 months to clear the insides with mallet and chisel. And finally it was finished, and there was nothing left to do but get it in the water. But fool that I was, it lay about 100 yards away from the water. This, of course, was discouraging. So I resolved to dig into the earth and make a small channel, which would bring the sea up onto the land next to the boat. I measured out the distance of the ground and then calculated how deep such a channel would have to be to float the boat. Alas, I found that I would have to work 10 or 12 years before I could get the boat onto the water, and I was grieved heartily. I realized how foolish it had been to plan such an immense task before considering all the consequences. I soon reached 4 years' anniversary of my landing on the island. I busied myself making a small boat in much the same way as I had made the big boat. And with this, I resolved to make a tour around the island. I stored up bread and rice, rum and gunpowder, and set forth on my journey. It was now November 9th, in the 6th year of my captivity. My voyage was uneventful, but it satisfied me that there was no other human being on the island. I returned to my own shelter and spent the next years in contentment, growing more crops, creating a plantation for myself, and building for myself such pieces of additional furniture as I might need.